recording. Let me share the screen.
Please. Starting with Leah, David, me.
Is the cloud, a Zoom thing or our, city, disk structure?
It's saved on Zoom.
It is saved on
Yeah,
Zoom, not
saved
it?
on Zoom, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then we save it into our, computers. We back it up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
8, we need 5. We now have 4. Steve will make 5.
Really, how are you?
Hi, good, how are you?
Good,
Hi,
thank you.
everyone.
Welcome.
Sure.
Okay, first I'd like to,
You wanna see?
yes, split screen. Thank you very much. So we only have 3, okay. So it is now 7:32.
Marty, I'll take minutes tonight. I'll take minutes tonight,
Oh, okay, thank
unless
you.
you want to.
No, I'm thrilled to have you do it.
Going up to the plate.
We're now recording. I'm calling the meeting for the Law, Rules, and Ethics Committee, March 4th, 2024 meeting to order. It's 7:32. At the moment, we do not have a quorum. I expect Steve Fruit to be here shortly, so we will have a quorum. But we'll get the meeting going anyway. At this moment, approval of the minutes will wait until we have a quorum. There is, unless anyone else has any other comments, there is one change, for which I credit, make this smaller.
Whiz.
Which I needed to have done before. David pointed it out that my sentence, while grammatically correct, was non-specific. and
Oh,
could
right,
not-
I forgot.
One could not know what I was talking about. So the chair announced that he now considered something a dead issue, and he could find no source of support, so there's no question of what the issue was. I've added, now consider the question of polling those who abstain on any vote a dead issue. We're not going to be speaking about it anymore. Over. So those are minutes, but we'll come back to approve. His report, Steve was going to send me a list, and he may still do it, but since the last month's board meeting was snowed out, he didn't follow up, and that's fine. But here's some of the thinking I have. When I report back to the community board, which I will do next week, that the concept of extraordinary circumstances is more than a burden than a help. And so I make these following comments, and I ask for input here. There was a poor response, and that's being generous, to the LRE survey. I reviewed the community board 8 minutes online and found that EC is seldom used. Quorum sometimes difficult. Found that EC tended to require time-consuming roll call voting. Found use of EC often broke up flow of meeting. While there are some valid examples of the need for EC, and I point right now to Chuck, without mentioning names, his EC because of concern for his wife, I would consider valid. I think others are somewhat questionable. In May, when CB reauthorizes use of teleconferencing, we should sunset procedures strongly community should continue telecommunications and allow public participation when appropriate. Those are the points I plan to hit, unless there are suggestions here of errors of omission, errors of commission, or just thoughts that anyone has.
On G, CBH should sunset procedures regarding EC?
Yes,
Okay.
but the document is called procedures.
Okay, but I would just clarify that, because I didn't know exactly what you're referring to. And then I had another thing, I would make note, some way, regarding, there you go, you just take that. I would make note that we've always had issues of members not being able to attend some meetings throughout the year. This doesn't really change.
True.
I would note that in the report to the board.
Without mentioning names, I mean, I had, again, I find myself in a difficult situation where I believe EC should not exist. I have used it twice. That places me in a
Yeah.
strange situation.
But
I find that my personal distress about asking for EC for a family matter back in November, people without mentioning names, who are on snowbirds. And that certainly was not the intent of EC.
right. So, I would still make mention of that members have always and will always miss meetings for various reasons, and EC does not really help, quorum, it doesn't help, meeting performance, you agree, Sylvia?
Well, we go right back to the situation as I stated way back when. And, my biggest problem with, EC is that members are very clever.
Okay.
And although they're supposed to go to the chair of the committee, go around the back door,
Okay.
and they get okayed anyway. And that just happened to me again. And I find that is, rather than that happening all the time, that person should just be absent.
Notes to the minutes, it is now 7:39, and Steve Fruit has arrived, and we now have a quorum. Welcome, Steve. And I was talking about you on this item, so I'll let you respond if you wish. You had suggested to me that you would put down some reasons that I could convey to the board about why we want to drop extraordinary circumstances. You didn't, primarily, I presume, because we got snowed out, there was no need immediately for it. So I put this together, but if you have other ideas to add to it, I'd be happy to include that.
Absence from meeting occurs normally, with or without EC. Yes, it philosophically correct, but, in terms of what we're trying to convince the board, whatever.
Have you changed your attitude? Because last meeting, you were very large in getting rid of it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, my point is that the absence from a meeting happens, and EC doesn't help, doesn't hurt.
Right.
So it really doesn't add value. I mean, I think that the telecommunication and hybrid is very valuable. But the EC, I think, as Marty articulates, later on, it really tends to interfere for reasons of going back and forth, for reasons of, trying to get, excused, and getting around getting excused and all that. But just,
I'm just asking.
yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
That's okay.
Yeah, and at the risk of repeating what David said, because I'm not sure you were saying this exactly, but it's frequently come up that EC, enhances the possibility of a quorum, but it's not it does not at all. Right, okay. I mean, because I think when it
At all.
started, there was a sense that it might make a quorum, assist that way. But instead, in fact, a pretty solid argument could be made that EC, when someone is on the fence or could just sort of push themselves through to get to the meeting in person and has a possibility of EC, so they can still hear and talk and participate and vote, it's very tempting
Right.
to zoom in which
Right.
case you cannot be part of the quorum.
Right.
Had you felt you could not
Exactly.
be part of it,
You at
you
least
might have
have
just
that.
had that incentive to be there. So
Right.
if anything, it cuts against quorums.
Right.
True.
Item D, found obtaining meeting quorum sometimes difficult. It impedes. If you take EC as opposed to attending,
Yeah.
you're impeding the
I think
quorum.
we have to.
I would actually, I would actually say it that way, that, found that, EC, it actually impedes meeting, quorum.
I agree, and I think you have to explain it. If you're gonna try to communicate with people who haven't thought about it deeply the way that we have, I think you really need to set it out, the way that we just were discussing, in more than just a repeats it, or it's something that's difficult. I think you have to, really have to explain it, but that's fine. Marty, I apologize, I forgot my commitment, and I will take that list, and I promise to send you something as soon as you want it.
Before the, board meeting.
Contemplated that you would do this orally, or we would, construct some form of recommendation or resolution. I mean, it's really not a resolution, because ultimately the board has to vote on something, and I don't think, this is like voting on.
Well, that's what he's saying at the end, in H, when we go, I mean, not to make a big deal of it now, but rather in May, just say, let's drop.
So you're giving people notice that,
That was the intent last
all right, got it, okay.
Following through, a heads up, you may have feedback, you may just argue it the other way, we'll listen to it, and you have time, but the issue will come up in May.
Right, and maybe you could solicit, say, I mean, if anyone wants to come to our next meeting, you're welcome to, participate, but much easier than that. You feel free to send an email explaining your views on it, because that's really, I mean, asking people to show up at the meeting is,
And I would just, add to the, after I, bottom line, the committee, recommends letting, EC, sunset. Yes. Maybe put it at the end of H.
Advising CB on committee's position concerning future views. You drop it?
There's a lot implied, I would just say, regarding EC, i.e., let it sunset.
if you are soliciting people's views and you don't want to make it seem like it's a dead letter, it's over, you can say the sense of the LRE, which has discussed it several times.
Fine.
What you just said, but we want to solicit the views of the board for making a
David's sake. Not to be, not to be ambiguous.
Right. We've discussed it a lot, but others may not.
Any further comments? Right along, and if you want to submit anything, I'll happy to look at it. Just 2 items on, I don't think, this came in after our last meeting, so I don't think I shared it previously, but I find, again, the question of why these people are such idiots.
Senior staff developer, I have no idea what level of,
Bureaucracy that means. He spends a lot of his time working for another company, which I'm sure he's well paid, a software developer. As a result, the former
senior software developer.
agreed to pay $7,500. I don't know if that's adequate, but I tell you. And our parent coordinator, who had an outside job, outside business,
With 81 files on a DOE laptop,
including 20 invoices.
I think they let
Her off easy with a 96.
fine. How they picked that number is beyond me.
So be it. And then I sent you, believe I sent you the Ethical Times in its entirety. I just
Got this piece out. These valuable gifts.
Rule prohibits public servants, which includes us, but no one's offering me anything. A gift of $50 or more from any party that does business or is seeking to do business with the city of New York.
That $50 amount is cumulative.
A 12-month period. And I love the next one. You have been my friend for years, and I tend to give you birthday gifts all the time, then that can continue. So long as you're not giving me a Lincoln or whatever, and it might be misconstrued because you never gave me a Lincoln before.
I take you out for dinner, and then you take me out for dinner, and
I will answer that with an example.
Okay.
That Alex will be coming to our meeting on, this coming Tuesday, not tomorrow, next Tuesday. And I offered to take him out for, now, I wasn't going to the Ritz, but maybe I was
to
gonna
thank him for coming to the meeting.
I might have taken them to Dunkin' Donuts, no big deal. But the fact, surprise guest?
Hi,
All right, you are?
George Santana, I'm new in the neighborhood, I'm at 6601 Broadway.
You're welcome.
Enjoy the walk up the hill.
Old horse.
Now, I had this problem before, so don't want to insult you. Are you at the right meeting?
Yes, law and.
Yes.
Full rules of
You're
that.
more than welcome.
I recognize you from the safety committee last month.
Yes, 2 weeks ago, yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
You did make a good point.
Right. About the
Permit is 260 a check, or 250.
the closing of
Yeah.
235, yeah.
Okay, can we
Yep.
get back here? Okay, so I offered to take him out, and he turned me down, presumably because he didn't want to get involved in this.
Okay.
The solution was that 2 of us would take him out, and under $50. I'm kidding.
Well, the whole committee would take him out.
Right, $10 apiece, right?
Well, no, but that's the opposite, actually, right? I mean, if you take him, I'm sorry, never mind. I'm thinking of you as the city employee. No, but he is, Alex is.
I don't
Yeah, yeah,
know
yeah.
what he could have
Yeah, yeah.
given me that I was bribing him for, but the point was, he said, no, thank you.
Understood.
forbidden.
And now we'll get to the real important reason for tonight's meeting. This, if you haven't read it previously, I'm sure you will have, this is what is on the, ethical guidance manual now. And, we can come back to it, but I wanna turn the floor over to Steve, and this is all Steve's suggestion. It was handed out last month, request that you absorb it and be able to fully discuss it as Steve presents.
Well, you know, as I've said before, there was concern on the part, certainly of Laura Spalter, who lived through the implementation or execution of the amendments from 2020 as chair, and not only as chair, but as chair when the office was short-staffed. She felt very strongly that the way that the ethical guidance manual had been amended, it would necessitate the cancellation of 2 meetings, one of which on very short notice. Not only confusing to the public, but that it was very burdensome on the office. And so, I promised to look at this again, and at the risk of amending this provision twice in 4 years, or asking the board to do that, I came up with a proposal which is to basically cross out whatever words you see crossed out, maybe not so easy to read from here. It's also in Marty's minutes if you printed them out. Not minutes, but expanded agenda, and to add the red text. Now, the reason there's so much red text is that this attempts to do 2 things, or I think it does succeed, but whether it's acceptable or not is up to the committee. The first thing it attempts to do is to eliminate the need for any cancellations whatsoever. First thing. The way it does that is to schedule 3 meetings, all 3 of which, in advance, all 3 of which will be used, and to avoid the problem of having a 10-day notice under the open meetings law to schedule a meeting. So this ensures that there are 3 meetings within 10 to 15 days of the committee's election, nominating committee's election. And what it also does is to give the board office discretion to pick whatever day or time within this period of 10 to 15 days would avoid a conflict with another standing committee meeting. That's the purpose of this. There will be no need for cancellation, and the board office is going to be spring-loaded and notified and aware in advance that when they put together the calendar for April, they're going to need to set these dates. There'll be no ambiguity about it because 2 of them are actually firm dates measured by whenever the election of the nominating committee is. And the 3rd date is something that is, well, actually 2 of the dates are in the discretion of the board office. So there will be no problem, no cancellation, no notice issue, because this will all be taken care of at the time the calendar is determined, which I think happens for the 1st of the month, certainly. That's my paraphrase of what.
I think, the board did us a great service in contacting COG and getting an answer that these first meetings don't have to be in public.
Oh, just certain things like scheduling don't have to be in public. The election of a chair most certainly does have to be in public. And decisions on policy and whether to send a notice out to existing chairs or to provide a safety valve and extend that period, all of those things are things that the committee presumably should be deliberating about at a publicly noticed meeting.
Okay.
Scheduling for sure, could happen offline. Again, this committee is meeting for the first time, for the sake of argument, on a Tuesday night in the proverbial back of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And that means they could not set a meeting until the 11th to 15th day after that. We're trying to avoid them having to wait 2 weeks to get organized, so.
So this is providing notice well in advance of 10 days that 2 meetings may occur in this period and that period, and, and they will be actually selected, but we're providing notice they may occur in these timeframes.
No, we're giving guidance to the board office about these timeframes. The actual meetings will be noticed by the board office before the first of the month. They're making this decision. This is giving them instructions, so there's no ambiguity. It's up to the board office to schedule these 3 meetings. The first is easy, because that's just the day of the election of the nominating committee. But it's giving the board office full discretion within a reasonable period of time that's set out there to notice 2 meetings, and that's it. Once it's done, there's no cancellation, there's no nothing.
But also, the committee members who won't be defined
Right.
until the night of that meeting won't have a choice.
They won't have a choice,
Okay.
but again,
Okay.
in the modern era of telecommunications, it would be possible to have 3 of 5 members make it to the meeting, and 2 of them to Zoom in and be able to vote, even if they didn't establish a quorum. So I think the flexibility of our system, this is not EC.
Be able to opine, right?
Right, opine, not vote, but opine, correct, sorry.
Okay.
If we don't have the, current EC
Okay.
regime, right.
Frankly, I have no problem with this.
No problem.
It's something we'll
Try on, see if it fits.
I'm just amazed how much time we've spent on this topic over the years.
Laura, since you're the one who created this problem in the first place.
have any comments?
Sure. I think this, you have from April 9th to May 31st to have a committee, the nominating committee meets, say, 3 times to get their business done. I think that this is a laudable, well, no, I think it's a solution in search of a problem. And so I stick with my original. I would sunset this procedure from 2020. I think the board focused and functioned for 40, 50 years without this procedure. And I think that if committee members know that they have to make these certain dates, and it may even discourage people from joining a nominating committee. And I'm telling you, I think it's just we're given a solution in search of a problem, but it's up to the board. It's fine. I made my opinion, and it's up to the board. So thank you for the opportunity to just give my opinion.
Except for the 40, 50 years you described, the open meetings law didn't exist.
Right.
Or
40 of them.
That's the big thing.
Okay, all right.
Well, when I chaired the committee, that we had an open meetings law. When I chaired the nominating committee. And I still think that you need to have a committee to make your dates. Otherwise, you're one hand clapping, and I just but again, it's up to the board. And I think David's right. We have spent a lot of time on this ever since it started. And that's it.
Still crack up, see whatever.
I remember Hop Sing from Bonanza.
I mean, the world won't come to an end if these provisions are all deleted. We'll work out, there'll be a way to deal with it. I suspect it will violate the open meetings law, and that's just what will happen, and that's life. But this is an attempt to live within that, and, but again, I don't think that it's a,
If there is approval,
Approval by the committee, the recommendation will be that this resolution be put on the calendar for the meeting next Tuesday, and that, it's not a resolution, it's an advisement, because we're advising the board we're making this
a
change.
proposal to amend the EGM. Part of the,
But we're not asking for a vote.
I don't
It doesn't
understand,
require a
Marty.
vote.
It started with a resolution in 2020. It was amended with a resolution, and now you
Done.
don't need
No
a resolution.
problem, I lose. Okay, so I'll go back to what I said, resolution on the agenda, resolution on the agenda for the board, knowing they have to vote, to amend the EGM.
I think it might make sense to get the resolution out early and a bit of background to explain why it will cover ethical guidance and that, OML, more for OML.
This may be a case of the more you explain, the more questions raised, and
But then one person asks at the meeting, and,
I think someone can stand up and explain it, but whatever.
are you prepared to do that?
Yeah,
Okay,
Marty's
okay.
prepared to do it, I'm prepared.
Okay.
Laura's prepared to do it.
okay, by a show of votes, all those in favor of putting this forward? Chuck, you can vote.
I know that, but I'll vote present. I'll tell you my view. It's irrelevant that I have the view. I think all you need to do is establish a deadline and let the committee decide on the dates. To be firm and set for the committee dates that may prove to be unrealistic for the members is foolish. But that's just my view.
And,
So we have an abstention, and,
501.
anything else on this? Everyone's so excited, don't wanna lose this moment. On the thing I sent out, for some stupid reason, I had Juneteenth on the 20th. I have no idea why I did that. What my mistake. Legislative spreadsheet I sent out. As usual, nobody responds. I do it as a service to the board. Maybe the chair will pick something up on the spreadsheet and use it for their committees. Maybe they won't. And so I figured out what this word. Where is it? What's this? The word I keep getting?
Cussing.
Cussing. Until I figure out what that word meant when I typed it in. Spend more time on it. Okay. So I hate to, get to this point. Any old business, any new business? Short meeting.
Last time, at the last meeting, I recall someone bringing up comments from Margaret Zella that came up from, I don't know, the January meeting.
At the full board
Yes,
meeting.
yes, about the elected officials, and we weren't quite sure what that comment meant, and I think one of us, I can't recall who, was supposed to go back and kind of get some, or see if Margaret had emailed about this.
He
I
has,
don't know if there is,
We're bringing the expert to the,
okay,
meeting next week, and Alex has been asked to cover that.
okay,
Maybe it would help him if it was a more specific.
It was one of my original letters to him, things that he should cover.
No, I think Margaret's concern, because that wasn't fully clear to me either.
mhm.
The issue of what is allowable and not allowable with respect to elected officials was raised.
Okay.
Our comments about this person or that person, or their vote, okay.
Now, I recall, he's present, I violated the rule. While introducing him, and after, either before or after he spoke, when he was here 2-3 years ago, probably could figure it out when I expressed, appreciation that our new congressman is going to be Richie Torres. Now, that was inappropriate in that context. The question you're asking is positive or negative statements about an individual, that's inappropriate. Supporting or being against any particular legislation, lobbying for legislation, that is appropriate. Appropriate.
Can, at the January meeting year, can we say we're please introduce our new congressman, our new assemblyman.
That's legit.
Okay, fine.
The way they communicate with the community.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
tradition.
yeah, yeah. But
Whether you
is
like
it-
him or not, or her or not, that's a fact.
Right.
I'd like to welcome
Right.
our new ex.
It's only when they're a competitive situation.
You're taking a position for or against that person,
Right.
and that's inappropriate.
Okay. Okay. In an election setting,
No,
Ever.
ever.
and say you support, the congressman's vote on X?
That's different.
We appreciate your support for. We appreciate your support for. Or we think you're really dumb in having voted against this thing.
Right, right,
Can't do that.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, think of a hot issue, gets discussed at the full board, and, the sense of the board may be channeling the community, maybe not as responsible legislature, says X. This is what we would like to see happen. The
Right.
city council's the last stop on a lot of things, under city governance. And our representative, votes the way that the board, hoped. They can't direct. And then the next meeting comes around and somebody says, I wanna thank, Congressman Torres or Assembly Person, Dinowitz, for voting the way they voted and corralling votes and appreciate it. That's fine.
That's fine.
It's an issue.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, it's an issue, not an individual.
I mean, that's my view. I don't know.
Okay.
The only time we cannot lobby, and was pointed out over the specific issue of term limits. I wanna come back to in a moment.
Right, right.
Once it's on the ballot, it's taboo for us. We can't discuss it.
Right, that's what I was saying in the competitive
We
environment.
can't support votes we cannot define our position. Obviously, in that case, many of us would have voted no. Now, I find it fascinating, and raise it, is we've all been getting emails that, and articles in the Bronx, Times, that the borough president is having much fewer applicants for community board seats. I don't know if that's everyone in the
I have
borough,
a feeling that was the case,
Or
because
this-
they extended it a week.
but the issue then becomes, there's gonna be a brain drain in a couple of years. You can't fill the empty slots, how are you gonna fill half or a third of the board membership in one fell swoop? So we're not gonna vote, there will not be a vote to undo term limits, but it's something that somebody who will succeed, people like me, ought to be worried about.
But views can be expressed. It's not on a current ballot. Views can certainly be expressed.
So what I just said is legit.
Okay, okay.
If it were on ballot again, then I couldn't discuss it.
Once it's on the ballot, right.
Right.
And I don't know the answer to this. What about something that comes up even more often, which is funding? Something that would apply citywide to community boards, increasing their funding, decreasing their funding. Even in my time on the board, that's come up. And I wonder, can we express our view on that?
We do that all the time. Which committee?
No, funding of community boards.
Oh, self-serving,
Well, I mean, you think you're doing it.
Well, Cabrera had made a point of getting 30 grand, I think it was, for every community board, 2 to 5 years ago. And
I would say, yes, we can. It's not part of a ballot measure,
Yes, and we have.
we certainly could thank him for doing so.
No, I'm talking about.
I know, but the next question would be, could we say, gee, we'd like to see it
Pass a
revised?
resolution, yeah, we do that a lot of times. No, I'm not saying that's okay, I'm saying that's the way it would happen.
Right.
The board would pass a resolution saying, we believe that we and all community boards should have a 10% raise. Funding.
Well, you scared me there. If Alex is listening to our getting raises.
10% of nothing is.
Increase in
It's
the
still an
allocated
increase.
budget.
But, under old business perhaps, you may have noticed that, a package was left for me at the last meeting. This is what was in the package. I am still reading it, and it
Jessica, wasn't
came with a really lovely card. I don't know who created it, but I really enjoyed the cover.
it? of everything.
The question is the card better than the book?
Easier to digest.
Well, that to be sure. This, I don't know why she selected this book. Apparently, well, it's on New York Times bestseller list. It was so good that this is his 4th edition,
Oh, my.
which he's rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. And I've looked him up, and apparently there are college courses based on this book. Taken me longer to read than I would have liked.
Next.
What's the author's last name?
Heinrich?
Heinrich with an S.
Thank you.
I don't plan to argue with anyone, but, basically, what's the word, arguing is not arguing to beat you down and be the winner, but arguing because we can resolve issues together if we use the right rhetoric is his key word. And he quotes, the one thing I found fascinating, people like Aristotle and the rest of those became real people because he quotes them constantly. I didn't know they spoke. And he quotes all over the place, from The Simpsons to, he makes all kinds of weird references. So I didn't know the people who developed The Simpsons, whereas some of the creative, the logic they've used in creating the dialogue for the characters, apparently he finds real deep meaning
God.
in what they've been
Well,
saying.
One of the creators of The Simpsons, or one of the early writers, creator, was a guy whose last job was assistant U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, and his next job was writing for The Simpsons. He had a writing background already, but.
So he's not quoting Elmer Fudd or Bugs Bunny, but he's quoting all kinds of people all over the place. It's warm in that he brings in lots of references to people you'd never expect, and it's a college course, so I can see dissecting sentence by sentence in that context. Reading it cold, really have to go back and, if I wanted to, and reread Latin and the references he makes. But I'll tell you better when I finish.
Okay.
There is nothing else before.
No, now that he's here.
Thank you.
Paul, I move to approve the minutes.
Just because we had 2 latecomers, just note that there's one change to the minutes, which David pointed out, which I have here in red. The first sentence, if you go back and look at the minutes, which there are copies available, was ambiguous as to what I meant when I talked about dropping the issue. The question was, what was the issue?
Right.
And so I added the question of holding those who abstain on any vote. I am dropping that issue. Now, the minutes, when they're amended, will reflect exactly what was meant. There a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Second.
Any opposed? Oh, Chuck, are you against this too?
Yep, I'm okay with it.
Passed, passed as amended unanimously. Unanimously passed as amended. That being said, 8:15,
Before we break, I just want to thank Marty, given all of his serious medical tribulations, that he has continued to run the committee, organize it, generate, very detailed agendas, through the whole thing, which is kind of amazing, so thank you.
welcome. When you're home, we can't do anything else. What else are you gonna do?
One hand, I don't know,
I can wave now. but I can't close the fist.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you guys for having
Do
me.
you have an issue you wish to raise?
No, I just moved, and I'm still living out of boxes, so I'm learning the ropes of my new neighborhood, and pleasure every time I come in and meet you guys.
For the
You're
minutes,
aware
could
of
you
our-
remind me of your name?
George Santana,
George Santana.
not related to
George,
Carlos.
G-E-O,
G-E-O-R-G-E.
Carlos? Oh, Carlos, okay. Or nor George Santayana.
Right, which, I had a friend who went to go see John Leguizamo years ago, and he mentioned George Santayana, the philosopher. And someone said, you gotta mention, because it happens that I do know John Leguizamo's mother. I said, no, I didn't, and we went back and forth, and it was Santayana, the poet, the philosopher.
For your information, our next general board meeting is Tuesday,
A week from tomorrow.
from tomorrow, at, College, Kelly Commons.
I did my first year of undergraduate at Manhattan College. I transferred to Fordham.
Kelly Commons may not have been there when you were there, though.
Probably not.
But you know where it is?
Yeah.
Up the hill on Oxford. I think it's.
No,
Waldo.
Building was,
Did you Rose Hill or?
Rose Hill.
Thank you all for your flexibility. Chuck was not supposed to be here. Chuck was supposed to be, pleading a case out of state and
I was
couldn't
supposed to
have
be,
his meeting.
I was supposed to
What?
be arguing a case in California, and the court put it off, damn it.
Okay, so he needed at the time to give up his date, needed a date before the next board meeting, because there were issues coming up the board, time factors. As a result,
We're gonna let Farah in case she has something important for now.
So I agreed, which I've done in the past, to switch with Chuck. At any rate, he was postponed, he's here, almost here. But, I thank you for making the adjustment.
Want to check and see if Farah had a particular issue to address? Came in?
You're
No, I'm
welcome.
just,
Anything you'd like to address?
no, thank you for asking though. Just,
Okay, we're
Just
about to
joining
adjourn,
in.
so.
okay.
Okay.
Please enjoy your rest of your evening.
Thanks for being here,
Motion to
Artie.
adjourn?
Thank you.
Anyone again?
Moved, seconded.
You go home? You need to come?
Oh, thank you. I have two, I think